He is simply done because Putin right now made probably the biggest mistake in his life. Besides this, Russian freedom fighters, they did declare a full war against Russia, and looks like that the final stage of this potentially entire war has just begun. But more about all this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's go straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. Okay, so yeah, just like this, absolutely unplanned and well, okay, whatever. So, in one of the most recent meetings with the school children, there was this presentation which was literally called "You should know your heroes in face," or like you should know the faces of your heroes. And obviously what I'm talking about are the heroes of the special military operation. They came to do the presentation in schools and universities, whatever. And the funniest thing about it is that they came in balaclavas covering their faces. So ironically, we should not know them inside, like we should not know their faces, apparently. And so the two main questions here right now are the following. Was this some kind of miscalculation by the organizers of this event, and now they can be criminally charged for discrediting the Russian army, as it always happens? Or maybe those so-called heroes are not that proud to be heroes after all. Maybe they have something to hide, and maybe they're not even proud of what they have done. Guys, please let me know down below in the comments what do you think. And by the way, guys, please do not forget about our special Easter merch promotion, where you can get this limited edition hoodie completely for free with the purchase of any The Russian Dude pants. Just make sure to use the code Easter23 during checkout. The link to my merch store is down below. But okay, now let me give you a quick Frontline update, and then we're gonna talk about this war potentially entering the very final stage. First of all, let's go to the south, where it is worth mentioning that Ukrainians were able to strike yet another Russian battleship called Konstantin Alshansky with reportedly Neptune missile, and at this very moment the damages are being verified. If you remember from our yesterday episode, we're also talking about 3 more Russian ships being damaged. One of them was called Ivan Hurs. And today we have new updated satellite images which show that indeed there was a relatively big attack on the actual ship itself. So right now it is pretty much leaning to the left, which pretty much signals us that there is water in some of its compartments, and probably right now Russians are trying to dump it as much as they can, otherwise the ship will simply sink. As we go to Kharkiv, right here we have a video presented to us by Mr. Madyar, as you probably already some of you know him, where he shows Ukrainian FPV drone operators fighting, pretty much doing a dogfight against Russian FPV drone operators. The only difference is that Ukrainians are using drones and they are targeting the actual infantry, the actual personnel. They follow them inside the house, and well, you can already guess what happens next. In response to that, Russians were like, okay, so we have to destroy something as well, right? So they did find this decoy of allegedly Ukrainian self-propelled howitzer. They destroyed it, but judging by this explosion itself, you can see that there's like metal sheets like flying around, wood parts. There is no ball of fire at all except the impact itself, which is once again confirms that Russians successfully destroyed a fake model of a howitzer. In response to that, Ukrainians for real were able to destroy a Russian multiple launch rocket system called Buk M using GMLRS, and then we go to Novoprokopivka, where Russians attempted yet another assault attempt against the positions of Ukrainians. They were quite unsuccessful, as this usually happens at this point across the entire front line. They tried to advance, Ukrainians were able to repel this attack, and as a result of this, the entire assault group along with their ammunition truck were destroyed. As we go to the east of Ukraine, specifically to Avdiivka, right here in this video you will be able to see that Russians are now fully occupying Avdiivka plant. This pretty much became their main fortress. But Ukrainians are still conducting attacks against this very fortified position. For example, in this video we can see that Ukrainians were able to destroy an entire anti-tank unit of Russians which were hiding inside the territory of this plant. As we go to Kreminna, which is located closer to Bakhmut, there was yet another assault attempt by Russians, as you might imagine, pretty unsuccessful one. And Ukrainians, in the process of repelling this attack, were able to destroy 1 tank and 7 other armored vehicles of various kinds. And since we did mention Bakhmut, right here is the video, I would say one of the most extraordinary videos I've seen recently, where Ukrainians are using their scary drone called Baba Yaga, and they were able to destroy at least a recorded, confirmed number of 10 of different armored vehicles of Russians in the less than 24 hours. This includes armored personnel carriers, infantry fighting vehicles, and even tanks, the most modern one, such as T-90M. Once again, all of this thanks to one single drone called Baba Yaga. And I mean, just wow, it's been really a while since I saw this flawless compilation of Ukrainian drone operators' activities. This video is truly once in a month you see something like this. Guys, as always, if you want to see fully uncensored version for yourself, please go ahead and check it. It is on my Patreon, there is 1 week of free access. And also, if you want to buy the Russian Dude merch, but you not want to buy this Easter hoodie, you will be able to find a 20% discount if you become a Patreon member as well. The link to my Patreon is down below. Alright, couple of last words from the front lines, and then we can finally talk about war coming literally to the territory of Russia. And so our next stop unfortunately brings us to one of the biggest cities in Ukraine, Kharkiv, where, as you can see, as a result of one of the most recent attacks by Russians, a local station was pretty much very much destroyed. Not completely, but it was severely damaged, leaving some of the neighborhoods in Kharkiv to be completely without electricity, without light, as you can see from this picture, and it is estimated that the repairs might take anywhere between several months, maybe to even 1 year plus. And even though the Ukrainian air defense was able to demonstrate an outstanding performance in the last day, intercepting all 12 out of 12 Russian Shahed drones, unfortunately, as you already might know, Russians start to use more and more hypersonic and ballistic metallic cylinders, such as, for example, one of the most recent developments called Zircon, which can reach the speeds of more than 9,000 kilometers per hour, which is approximately 6,000 miles per hour. And it can reach, if for example, if you launch it all the way from the Crimean Peninsula, it can reach the above mentioned Kharkiv in less than 4 minutes. So as you can imagine, intercepting such things, it is literally just needs to be a pure luck, or they need to have advanced air defense systems such as Patriot, which Ukraine has in very limited quantities. And potentially as a result of this, in combination of anti-Putin forces' success to the north of the border, in Belgrade and Kursk, in those particular regions, recently an evacuation from several cities inside Kharkiv region was announced. And ultimately speaking about Kharkiv, according to some sources which are relatively close to Kremlin and potentially to Putin himself, Putin sees right now that yes, this special military operation is definitely not going according to his wildest dreams. At the same time, he cannot end it just like this. He needs to end it on a high note. He needs to invade and capture something really big. Obviously, we're no longer talking about the entire territory of Ukraine or majority of its regions. At this very moment, what is being discussed is that Putin might see as the final of his special military operation in capturing the city of Kharkiv. So pretty much, if in case this information is true, at least partially, we are talking right now about the final stages of this war. And also they did mention that in case Putin does capture Kharkiv, which is extremely unlikely to say the least, and in case he is able to achieve it easily, but okay, let's just dream here. Let's say that he will be easily able to capture Kharkiv. Then he might not actually stop and then end up trying to capture Kyiv. And this is definitely, according to these sources close to Putin, then this is definitely going to be the final stages of the war. So basically, to sum up what we have right now, Kharkiv is the main priority for Putin, and we did get a lot of news recently that Russians are assembling along Kharkiv front line, trying to advance to the west. In case he will not be able to do it, most likely we'll just once again see the stalemate going for several months or maybe even years. So basically, let's see, but the fact is the fact. Kharkiv right now is the priority for Putin. Let's see what's gonna happen, and Ukrainians should know about these upcoming attacks as well, so they are obviously already preparing the defenses of this particular region. And now finally, let's talk about war literally coming on the territory of Russia, and we'll finalize everything with Putin's literally biggest mistake which can cost him everything. But before we go any further, guys, if you don't mind and if you want to help my work, can you please simply like this video and subscribe to my channel? This will help a little bit with the YouTube algorithm to push my videos to more new people. This is a tremendous help, support from you guys, so for this I'm thankful so much. You can also follow me on Instagram to see how I live outside of YouTube, the link is down below. And so yes, talking about war coming to the territory of Russia, as some of you might have already assumed, we are going to talk about right now combat activities on the territory of Belgorod, because at this point it is pretty much routine daily activities. The residents of this particular city and some other cities bordering to Ukraine, they wake up to very loud noises. At the same time, according to the leader of the Russian Volunteer Corps, Mr. Demise, we're not gonna call his last name just in case, I mean it is public information, but just in case, he basically said that they were able to transfer war activities on the territory of Russia, pretty much saying that it came to Russia as well. So right now these combat activities are not happening just on the territory of Ukraine, but in Russia as well. And one of the major things which it allowed them to achieve is that it disperses the attention of Russians, not just being focused so much on Ukraine itself, but also how to protect their own borders, which in the future will hopefully allow Ukrainians to launch more successful counteroffensive. Besides this, to make it even more official, according to the very same Russian Volunteer Corps, they are announcing a limited military operation against Russia and Putin. Obviously it means war, but they just wanted to kinda ironize this special military operation, calling this a limited military operation. And so, what is this then Putin's biggest mistake? I was talking about pretty much this entire video. Well, long story short, it is related to these most recent attacks in Moscow, the capital of Russia, but it is not just attacks themselves, it is the way Putin responds to them. And what Putin is basically saying, and right now I'm gonna give you almost his exact quotes, is that yes, this was a big tragedy, this was unfortunate, we know who did it, but it all does not matter. What actually matters is who was the organizer of this event, and all the things, all the symptoms, all the evidence points just to one country, the very same country which terrorizing Russia since 2014, which is basically Ukraine. And one of the biggest evidence, according to Putin, why he thinks this is Ukraine behind these Moscow attacks, it is because these people, they try to escape going to the territory of Ukraine. He was basically Putin saying that as soon as they will be able to cross the border, they will be met there as heroes. All this is a complete nonsense. Another thing worth mentioning is how this exactly the very same event was portrayed by different medias. And for example, according to this AI tool, which allows to compare hundreds of articles at the same time, it allows you to show the bias comparison. For example, it says that the left extensively details the legal and human responses to the attack, while the center and right are emphasized on Putin's statements and international reactions, respectively. And guys, you already know how extremely valuable this service that Ground News provides for me whenever I'm preparing for my daily episodes. And just once again, if any of you want to give it a try, right now they're running a special promotion. There is $1 for the entire month or 40% off unlimited access, and all you have to do is to use my link, which you can find down below, ground.news/Russian Dude. And right now here is exactly why everything that Putin was saying is a complete nonsense. So, his main statement is that those people were trying to escape and hide in Ukraine, right? Incorrect. According to allegedly his best friend, the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, he said that actually those people were intercepted trying to hide in Belarus. So this was their initial place of hiding. Then whenever they were discovered, they switched their course and they started going south to Ukraine. But the original country was Belarus. Somehow Russian propaganda and Putin himself literally did not mention this fact at all, and even one of these tickets high for speeding, which these people received whenever they're trying to escape on their white Renault. It actually says that this was actually taken like several kilometers, dozen kilometers away from the Belarusian border. But at this point it does not matter, because the FSB is blindly following the lead of Putin, and according to its head, Alexander Bortnikov, yes, he is at this point 100% convinced it was Ukraine behind this attack. It was Ukrainians who were training those people in the Middle East somehow, but this is literally what he said. It is an undeniable proof of Kyiv involvement of this attack, and all the authorities, military leaders of Ukraine are now legitimate target for the Russian military. And when you start reading the reactions of regular Russian people, finally you see some common sense prevailing over propagandistic brainwashed brains. People themselves, at this point ex-Z patriots, they do say that, well guys, this is ridiculous at this point. At this point, like, who they think we are? Do they think we completely blind people? Do they think we're like sheep? We cannot understand and make our own assumptions? Like, it was so obvious that in case something like this happens, and in case Putin will try to use it to his advantage, to blame against Ukraine, once again Ukraine, this will be just way, and this is exactly what he is trying to do, basically what I'm trying to say. And finally, Russian people started opening their eyes, because they see that Russian authorities are literally treat them like stupid. But all this focus of Putin, his inner circle, the FSB, and everyone related, all this focus on Ukraine instead of the actual perpetrators, it is what something can be the biggest mistake in Putin's career, which can cost him sooner or later everything. And here is exactly what I mean by this. I'm sure, guys, you've seen a lot of already at this point conspiracy theories saying that the FSB or even Putin like just personally was inside this concert hall doing this stuff. These are just conspiracy theories. You probably seen like these people trying to prove, hey look, these like 5 men are wearing exactly the same blue shorts, blue sweaters, and these were the people who eventually caught those people from Tajikistan. Let's be honest, all these are just conspiracy theories. The real people who did it are the ones which is the official version, this organization, which unfortunately I cannot say on YouTube, but you know who I'm talking about. And to be honest, that's probably even going to be the very first time in the history of this organization when they have to not just declare that they are behind this attack, but actually prove it that it was them. Because another thing which this proves is the complete incompetence and inability of the Russian internal security services, the FSB, to prevent something like this at all. And to make things even worse, right now all their efforts are being focused how to tie and blame Ukraine and the West for these events, instead of actually trying to prevent something like this in the future. And so Putin, with his just simply blind hatred towards Ukraine, he is most likely right now making the biggest mistake of his life that eventually, and with the very high probability, will even lead to his demise. And I mean, yes, he might even be successful at first pushing this anti-Ukrainian propaganda, he might have some crazy Z-patriots actually believe him, but if and when, unfortunately, something similar happens in one of the major cities in Russia, or maybe once again in Moscow, then people will finally start asking questions, like if Putin cannot even protect his own country, what are we even doing in Ukraine? And so far Putin was successful and lucky dozens, if not hundreds of times during this political career, but just like with all the other criminals, he only needs to make one big mistake just once. He needs to get sloppy just once for the justice service to have a chance at capturing him. And this particular mistake, where he compromises literally the safety and security of his own country and people in favor of justifying the invasion, this very well might be the mistake which we are all waiting for. Please let me know down below in the comments what do you think. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи. Please subscribe for more daily news. Don't forget about our The Russian Dude merchant, my Patreon, for extra content, and see you tomorrow.